Early Thanksgiving morning outside the Who's on First bar, a bystander, Jeff the Cherry, was killed just days before his 30th birthday. Today there was a shooting outside the John D. O'Brien School of Mathematics and Science in Roxbury. A 16-year-old was hit but is expected to survive, unlike 17-year-old Laquan McDonald, who was killed by 16 shots fired by a white officer in Chicago. We're freezing this video before the shots were fired. You've likely seen the rest of this graphic footage endlessly on cable news. Joining now is Boston Police Commissioner Bill Evans. Commissioner, it's good to see you again. What was your first reaction when you saw that video?
Well, I was troubled by it. I've seen the video many times, and to be shot 16 times, I think, and 13 times on the ground, I think all of us in law enforcement have to be troubled by the amount of force used there.
What about the reaction of the other cops that were there? It wasn't just this Van Dyke character.
Yeah, again, I seen it, and I know it was a 13-month investigation. Obviously, that troubles me too, how long it took, and the coincidence of the day the video comes out, the charges come out, and so
first-degree murder charges against Van Dyke.
And again, I don't always back up law enforcement when I think they're wrong in how the whole process went, but I'm real troubled by what goes on here because unfortunately people look at that and we all get painted with the same brush.
All of your men and women too.
Yeah.
Seeing what you saw on video, he did commit murder, did he not?
Well, again, obviously there was excessive force as far as I'm concerned. There's no reason someone to get shot 13 times when they're already on the ground, Jim. So, obviously they're going to try him. I just don't know why it took 13 months after.
Well, what do you think? I mean, I'll give you one thesis beyond the fact that they want to wait for the indictment. Right. There was a mayor running for re-election in the middle of that. Think that had anything to do with it?
Well, again, I don't want to get into the politics. I just, I want our department to be as transparent as possible, Jim, and my department does a great job, and I'll back them 100%, but I have issues with what happened here.
What is the impact? The next day after that, and the next day, we've discussed this before when there have been other horror shows like what we saw in Chicago. It does all trickle down to your men and women, does it not? It does hurt that trust that you've tried to build up with the community,
It does, because when people see that, they lose faith in the criminal justice system. Even the relationship between the police and the district attorney's office, which is always put into question on this. And I think when this takes 13 months, I think people question. And I don't blame sometimes the minority community for having severe questions about the criminal justice system.
Do you ever worry that you might have a Jason Van Dyke in your own rank? Let me just give you an example before. The thing that made me think of you is days after the Globe ran a story about how, there are a dozen of your officers that have more than 20 complaints against them, some of which have been, to quote them, languishing for years. We read about this Jason Van Dyke guy, had dozens of complaints against him too. Is it not possible that there is someone lurking with that kind of rage in him or her that could do this kind of thing? How do you try to assure that there isn't a Jason Van Dyke?
Well, what we try to do, Jim, is we red flag people who have multiple cases. We call it early intervention system.
What does that mean?
It means if they have more than 2 complaints in a year, we call them in, our internal affairs, and we sit down with them and we try to counsel them, see what's going on with them. So I'll never say never, but we red flag an officer when they get several complaints. And I think if you look, our excessive force complaints, and we make a lot of arrests, have been down 62% over the last 5 years. So I think we're doing better at that.
Do you think the fact that these things lay around, or at least take, in some cases, years to process in our city is not a problem?
It's a problem, but again, there's the whole idea of due process for the officer. A lot of these cases go to court where they get continuance after continuance, and then by the time we get to settle it internally after the criminal case, it might be a year and a half. But my department does a great job day in and day out under real difficult times.
Would you not agree that if there had not been a dash cam in Chicago, the likelihood of Jason Van Dyke being charged with first-degree murder is pretty much zero? Is that a safe assumption? There was a Burger King camera. You read that he tried to erase that, and he's videotaped trying to erase, allegedly, the video.
That bothers me, too, when I read 86
minutes
erased from it. So, I'm just glad there was video like it happened in South Carolina. I look at the same thing, Jim, and I said, would the cops have got away with that? And that's why,
Walter Scott being shot
and that's why we're moving towards video cameras. That's what I want
to ask you. The last time you were here told me February or March for body camera pilot. Is that happening?
Yeah, I'm working with Michael Curry and that social
NAACP.
justice task force, they're all going to be part of how we roll out that program. And so they're going to have a lot of input onto what neighborhoods we put it onto, what cops. So it's going to happen. I don't think anyone can fight it now.
But you're still guesstimating that February or March is the pilot date.
Well, I'm looking more March, April,
Okay.
before the wet, warm weather comes.
You know, at the same time that you've come around, I hope that term is a fair term, come around on the whole body camera thing, at least as a pilot, your concern, I've read, about individuals, citizens, who videotape your cops. In fact, you've sought some legislation limiting that. How can body cameras be okay and a person exercising his or her constitutional right to video what your officer is doing be a problem?
I got to say, the newspaper took that out of context. All I was saying is, when we're out there working July 4th, we don't need cameras this close to our face. I fully understand we deserve to be taped, and people have that right to do it.
As long as they don't interfere with
As long
your
as they're
work.
not doing it just to aggravate us, Jim.
A couple of local things. Planned Parenthood, in the wake of what happened, what are you changing here? What are you doing here?
Well, we have a great relationship. I was the captain out there, and,
Right.
and Planned Parenthood have met. They just have a new director down there. You know, the captain out there, Wayne Winchester, he's going to meet them. We've stepped up our patrols. We've made it clear to them if they have any concerns, we'll be there. But we've stepped up our patrols in and around there. Obviously, this incident troubles all of us.
You know, it's hard to say something like this is good news, but it is. Last year at this time, 50 homicides, I think, in Boston, down to 32. Put that in context. Since we're talking about Chicago, I did some math before the show. Chicago is 4 times as big as Boston in terms of population, 14 times as many murders so far this year. Early Thanksgiving morning, you get a call, and this guy who sounds like a terrific guy, who's just short of his 30th birthday, Jephthah Cherry, is murdered outside a bar. Innocent bystander. Where are we in terms of finding the people responsible
Well, we're
for this?
working hard on that case. You know, I get briefed in the morning and in the afternoons on that case, and we're making some good progress, but we still need the public's help. But, you know, me and the mayor visited his parents, and let me tell you, what a heartbreaker. You know, he was a great kid. He was helping support them, and it really breaks your heart on Thanksgiving morning. And, you know, I got the call around 2. I never got back to bed. It ruined my Thanksgiving day when 4 people get shot, and, you know, it's troubling. But knock on wood, we've had 32 homicides. That's 32 too many, but compared to other cities, we're doing well.
Commissioner, it's good to see you. Thank you
you.
so much for your time,
Thank
as
you.
always.